This episode of the Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is your daily fantasy platform for player props. Now, Thrive Fantasy is offering our listeners an instant match on their first deposit of at least $20. Use promo code DTSN when signing up today. Start picking your props, racking up points, and winning cash prizes.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone. It is intercepted by Jaylen Ramsey. Robert Wood, touchdown, LA! Picked off by John Johnson. Caught, touchdown, Tyler Higbee. It's Michael Brockers who gets there. A'Shawn Robinson. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air. Taylor Rapp, who had one taken away, will take this into the end zone. Henderson with a good run and a first down, still on his feet. Safety in the arms of Leonard Floyd. Up top, touchdown, Van Jefferson. Terrell Lewis. Everett in stride. Wow!
Hit behind the line. Terrell Burgess, 26.
At the goal line and in for his second touchdown. Malcolm Brown into the end zone. Abu Khan with the strip sack. Taken off by Troy Hill.
Akers with a stiff arm. Akers into the end zone. Cam Akers.
LA will play for the Lombardi.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 320. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And we have our special guest for the Rams 49ers preview show. We have former NFL cornerback and contributor to 4th and 9, Eric Crocker. How's it going, man? Thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
It's going good, man. Well, probably a lot better for you guys, you know, with the Rams starting off to a really good start, and the 49ers kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, we're certainly not taking it for granted, that's for sure. And, just to start this off, before we kind of get into questions, I do want to run over the injury report really, really quickly here, because the big news on the Rams side is that the Rams have placed safety Jordan Fuller on IR, which is a big bummer for Rams fans because he's been having a great season so far. Because of this, we've promoted defensive back Juju Hughes to the 53-man roster, and we also are keeping our eye on linebacker Micah Kiser to see if he's going to be able to go this week. And also, I should note that Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo is going to be sidelined 4 to 6 weeks because he is undergoing elbow surgery. So that was some news that recently came out. But then as far as the practice report goes, obviously Okoronkwo is out because of the news I just shared. Micah Kiser, again, is questionable. But then on the 49ers side of the ball, as of today, linebacker Quan Alexander and cornerback Dante Johnson are both listed as out. And then safety Marcel Harris, running back Jeffrey Wilson, and cornerback Emmanuel Mosley are all listed as questionable. So, Eric, I just kind of want to throw this to you a little bit. Going into week 6, looking at the 49ers, obviously, and Jake and I have talked about this on our podcast this season. You guys have had it really, really rough with injuries so far this year. I mean, we never want to see that. I know that we're both in the NFC West and we're rivals, but it's just absolutely sucks when a team has all the injuries that you guys have, and we hate to see it, and we really feel for you guys. But looking forward to this season, if you could kind of give us a quick kind of overview on how you expect the 49ers to do and where they might end up at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's tough, coming out and, after week 1, I think, Richard Sherman was out. Richard Sherman, D Ford, and then obviously early in game 2, you lose Nick Bosa, who's, the heartbeat of the defense. And, he's been excellent. I think even better than we thought he was going to be, right? He's like, the 15th ranked player in the top 100 voted on by the players or whatever. So, he's a tremendous ball player. Losing him, that really hurt. And then after that, it was just a snowball of injuries. Pretty much every cornerback on the roster outside of Jason Verrett, which is interesting because he's been the most injury-riddled corner, but he's been a really good surprise for us, very healthy and contributing. But, on the other side of him, guys have been out. Keller Witherspoon, he's missed time. Emmanuel Mosley, he has missed time. Like you mentioned, Dante Johnson, he's out. They've gone to some guy named Brian Allen and against the Dolphins, and that was terrible. The Dolphins came out, targeted him early and often. That didn't go well for the 49ers. Quan Alexander, he's going to be out now with a high ankle sprain. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's been out. And even when he came back, it didn't look right. It didn't look very good, and he ended up getting benched. So it's just been – lost George Kittle for a couple games. Deebo Samuel didn't play until, week 4, I believe. It's just been a lot of injuries, like one thing after another. And at some point, I think we kind of saw this coming where it's just really hard to overcome. And that's what the 49ers are going through right now with that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot. When you look at this roster, they added somebody that I think has looked pretty good so far, dominating the reps in Brandon Ayuk. You're getting, Deebo Samuel's back, George Kittle's back. It seems like, this 49ers team's getting a little bit more healthier, but then all of a sudden Quan Alexander's out. And of course, Dante Johnson's out. So I obviously it's kind of like give and take at this point. And I think really it all comes down to, are we going to get the Jimmy Garoppolo of last year? Because if that's the case, then the 49ers, should be fine. But I want to ask you your thoughts on the quarterback room to this point, going off of Jimmy Garoppolo there. You have Nick Mullins, obviously, who showed, some flashes in the past. CJ Beathard looked really good 2 games ago when they threw him in, and I think, he went like 13 of 13 or something crazy like that. So, Beathard is looked all right. What are your thoughts on this room?
It's tough. The offensive line has kind of played, really up and down and kind of sped up the time clock of the quarterbacks. So they're kind of rushing through everything, and you can see them off target a little bit. We saw with Garoppolo. It's the offensive line, I think, is kind of making it a little bit difficult to really fairly assess the quarterback position. I think overall you would like your quarterback to kind of be able to overcome things like that. But the 49ers, with the way they've kind of built their quarterback room with guys that aren't very athletic, they can't really move. They have to play within, timing and rhythm of the offense. It really highlights their weakness when the offensive line isn't playing as well. So that's kind of been something that has been really hurting the 49ers early in this year. I mean, we saw it from week 1, even when Jimmy Garoppolo was fully healthy, he did not look very comfortable against the Cardinals. That continued. Even week 2, even though he was sharp, he got hit almost every down. I want to say the 49ers quarterbacks have been hit either the most or second most in the NFL. So that's never good. I think the quarterback room and the offensive line, they kind of go hand in hand with some of the struggles we've seen early on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When the offensive line isn't playing well, it makes it really difficult to assess the quarterback. And that's something that we saw as Rams fans last year, because for the majority of the Rams season last year, our offensive line was pretty bad. And in turn, Jared Goff started to play really bad. And it was kind of hard to tell, was it Jared Goff not performing well? Was it because our offensive line gave him like 0.5 seconds to throw the ball? So I think you're right. I think it really makes things tough on the quarterback, obviously, when the offensive line isn't playing super well. But what I want to bring up next is kind of the running back room for the 49ers, because you guys you guys did this really well last year, kind of running that running back by committee scheme, which is something that the Rams have actually started doing this year. But, just in your opinion, what are your thoughts on your guys' running back room, and what should we expect from them on Sunday night?
Yeah, so Raheem Mostert, he's back. He's healthy. Anytime he's been on the field, he's been extremely impressive, very explosive. This is a guy who was cut by about, 6 different NFL teams before, getting to the 49ers, which was, the 7th team, and actually, finding a home, finding someone that kind of believes in him. And even then, he started off just a special teamer. And he was special teams ace. Well, every time he got an opportunity to carry the ball, he did extremely well. And last year, they kind of bumped up his load a little bit where, him and Tevin Coleman ended up splitting the carries. But even then, it was clear that Mostert was, the better of, the 2 guys that they had out there. And he's just kind of carried that over to this year. I want to say he was close to, or over 150, total yards between, receiving and rushing in week 1. Week 2 against the Jets, he started out hot. He had the first carry of the game was a 75-yard touchdown run. He also had a 68-yard touchdown run in that game that was called back. And then he kind of got banged up a little bit and missed a couple games, but came back last game, had 11 carries for 90 yards in a loss to the Dolphins where they had to kind of go away from the run game. He's one person that can, if this is a close game, he can break at any moment. I don't want to, sound like, a biased 49er fan or anything like that, but I know there's guys out there like Tyreek Hill, but I'm not sure there's anyone in the league faster with the ball in their hands than Raheem Mostert. He messes up all angles that defenders are taking. Any carry, any touch, he can really take it to the house. And 49ers really haven't had that from anyone in a really long time. So it's really exciting to see, especially from a running back.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate with what you just said about Raheem Mostert. I'm kind of a fan of his, honestly. I mean, obviously, being a Rams fan, guys don't throw tomatoes at me yet. I mean, I just like the guy. I love that, that kind of, under the radar type of running back that really had to, as you said, really work for it. And I was kind of happy for him last year. I mean, obviously, maybe didn't want the 49ers in the Super Bowl or anything like that, but, definitely happy for him. And, the injury, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. So, the fact they have him back is a huge plus for them. Plus, they have Jerick McKinnon, Jeffrey Wilson, who I think is a tad underrated, and JaMychal Hasty from Baylor. So, I think that's a good running back room. I don't know if it's quite on par with, last year having Breida and Coleman. But, I definitely think it's up there, and McKinnon looks good. So, I'm not going to knock that. Kind of moving on here, though, with Quan Alexander out, who should we expect in his place, this weekend?
Oh, Dre Greenlaw. So there's Dre Greenlaw. I mean, obviously Fred Warner, but Dre Greenlaw, I think if you ask most 49er fans, I think they like him more than Quan Alexander. He stepped in big time down the stretch. Quan Alexander got hurt maybe week 8 last year and did not return until the divisional round playoff game against the Vikings. And Dre Greenlaw, I mean, you wouldn't have been able to tell a difference in, at least from the linebacking core. There was no production drop off. Dre Greenlaw played extremely well, had made big plays, had an interception in overtime against the Seahawks that put the 49ers in scoring position, but they had some backup kicker at the time, just missed. So 49ers ended up losing that game. And then he got the Seahawks again week 17 at the 1-inch line. He was the one that made the big stop right there that resulted in the 49ers actually winning the division and being the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So Greenlaw, man, he steps in and he's big time. He's big time. Dude is really good. I don't know who's scouting these linebackers for the 49ers, but they're really doing a good job there. And then there's Al-Shaair. He's played a lot. He's a good third guy. I think you'll see him in base defense playing either the Sam backer or he might be, inside. But the 3 guys, that's who's going to be out there with Quan Alexander out.
Yeah, Dre Greenlaw was somebody who I actually really liked coming out of college, out of Arkansas. I was a fan of his, so I'm excited to see him play on Sunday night and, see what he can do. But I am curious to kind of get your opinion on a potential Emmanuel Moseley return. I mean, how big of an impact would that have for the 49ers?
Huge. Because you can't, Moseley isn't someone, Moseley and Verrett, I'm not saying they're shut down cornerbacks, but they aren't a guy who you're just going to pick on, like we saw with what happened with Brian Allen. I think that just makes it so that Robert Saleh can really call his defense how he wants and there not be just some drastic drop-off like we saw last week. So, yeah, him coming back, that should lift up the 49ers, big time, especially in the secondary, to where now you kind of feel a little bit more like, what it's supposed to look like as opposed to, against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and, kind of just piggybacking off that, the 49ers made a really key, in my opinion, really key acquisition when they added Parnell Motley After the Buccaneers caught him, they tried to get him on the practice squad, and the 49ers claimed him. I believe it was you that got me watching his film, because I think you were the first one that was on him during the draft process. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were really high on Parnell Motley out of Oklahoma. You mentioned Brian Allen, who I believe, if it's the same Brian Allen, he's the guy that the Steelers drafted out of Utah. He's on the practice squad. So to kind of add some clarity to this whole situation, the 49ers essentially were playing a guy right off the practice squad who was getting picked on just on game day. Do you see Parnell Motley getting involved in this game at all?
Well, it sounds like he can't because of COVID rules, and then I think they just came up with some new COVID rules to where now I think signing somebody, it just takes a little bit longer for them to be able to, report to the team. So I think the first day he can join the team is this upcoming Monday. So
Okay.
he won't play against you guys, but you were right about like just me really liking him. He was someone, it was really weird. I wasn't watching him. I was watching Denzel Mims, and, I'm like, well, gosh, Denzel Mims, he's in the Big 12. He's not really playing anybody. So I'm just watching him, and I'm like, oh, okay. Watching the game, I'm like, wow, who's number 11 for Oklahoma? That was nice. Then I see it again and again, and I'm like, God damn, who is number 11 from Oklahoma? So I had to look it up, and I ended up, like, putting out a thread on him on Parnell Motley instead of Denzel Mims because I was so impressed. And he was someone that I had in my top 10, which a lot of other people were like, oh, man, you're putting a lot of stock into that Mims game. Like, Motley isn't good like that. But I really liked that game, and I checked into the other games, and I thought he was really good. I thought he took on challenges that you don't really see a lot of other cornerbacks in college football take on, where he's shadowing guys around, a lot of man press. I was just really impressed with that. Now, he didn't test well. He wasn't invited to the combine and, all that. So he kind of slipped through and went undrafted. But I said, hey, that's some guy that, like, 49ers, they get these big guys that are a little stiff. I'm like, stop getting those big, stiff guys. If you want to take a chance on somebody that can cover, get this Parnell Motley guy. And they didn't. He went to Tampa Bay. And I was following his training camp closely just to see, like, okay, maybe I was wrong because he went undrafted. But he ended up picking off Tom Brady a couple of times, picked off whoever their backup was, which I want to say Blaine Gabbert, but I'm not sure. He had a really strong camp to where he made the 53. And the way their roster is set up right now, they just have a ton of young corners that they've drafted over the last couple of years. And I think it just wasn't a really good opportunity for him. So they tried to let him go to see if they can slide him to the practice squad. 49ers claimed him. And I was really excited to see that because I think he can be somebody. I don't know about, like, just some starter, but he's a better depth piece, in my opinion, than what we saw from Brian Allen. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, so I guess, he might be the answer to this question, but going into this game, who is one 49ers player who we will see or might see that Rams fans should be aware of? Maybe a guy who kind of flies under the radar, but could potentially give the Rams a lot of problems on Sunday night.
Man, if it's one guy that kind of flies under the radar, I'll say Hyder, the defensive end. He's been really good, really active. Now, he's not somebody that's really fast, and luckily Goff isn't the most athletic quarterback. I think Goff, though, people give him a hard time and say he can't move. I think he moves a little bit better than what people give him credit for, in the sense of, like, every once in a while, I'll see him make some plays with his legs. I saw it against the Dallas Cowboys. And every blue moon, you guys do those boots, and if it's not there, I've seen him take off and get about 5 to 10 yards. I think that's really good for him. But Hyder, in the absence of, Nick Bosa, D4, even lost Ezekiel Ansah after that. It's like, man, like, who's going to step up and get some pressure on your quarterbacks? Lost Solomon Thomas as well. Gosh, I mean, we're just so banged up. But Hyder, man, a pleasant surprise. He's come in. I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at the official stats, but if I had to guess, I'd say he's leading the 49ers in sacks right now with about 3 or 4 sacks. He's been really active. He's been really exciting to see. So that's somebody, flying under the radar. Hyder, he's like number 92. I think that's somebody that might jump out to you guys.
Yeah, that's funny. It's I was looking right at that name when you said him on my list here because I actually answered that question as well. I had Hyder.
Yeah.
Going back to his days, with the Lions, I really liked him. Then the Cowboys, added him. I think he's just a really underrated player because he's not like an athletic specimen. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's a pass rusher that just kind of does all the little things well. He's more refined, I guess, and more, he's more of a finesse pass rusher than, a true, speed rusher, in my opinion. So, I definitely, I like that pick for sure. I could definitely see, Brandon Ayuk shouldn't fall under the radar, but I could definitely see him giving the Rams fits. But yeah, I think the Hyder pick was right on, but moving on, we have a roundtable section here. We're all going to answer these questions. So we'll start off with the offense. It'll be both teams. Who's going to have the better game between Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo? We'll start with you, Eric.
Well, I'll say Jared Goff. And I don't know if I even feel confident with that. The Rams' offense is really weird. A lot of talent. I like some of the backs that you guys have, the young guys. But I feel like the offensive production hasn't quite been to what I think it could be, especially against the teams like, watching you guys against the Giants. And I'm just like, oh, they're going to blow the Giants out, right? And it wasn't that, and it's been kind of weird. But I'm still going to go with Goff just because I feel like, your guys' confidence and you guys have been in more of a rhythm than the 49ers. So between the two quarterbacks, I'm going to go with Goff right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Goff too. I think the Rams offense has kind of been in a rhythm. So I agree. I think that Goff out of the two will have a better game. And then I think obviously, Jimmy G, he's not someone that I'm necessarily worried about. I think that some people want to pretend to be, worried about him because of what happened last game and the way that he's been playing. But I do think that he's going to be fine. I think in this particular game, I think that Jared Goff is going to have the better game simply just because of the way that the Rams offense has been meshing the past couple of games. And I expect them to kind of carry that into this game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Goff as well. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo right now and I am actually one of those people. I am, worried if I'm a 49er fan. I don't know the extent. I just feel like there's some people not quite, giving credit to his injury. A high ankle sprain can really affect you all year. So that's the dreaded, that's the ACL tear that just keeps on tearing you, where you can still play, but if you don't keep tabs on that, you're about as good as benched. And I think, we saw that in 2011 as Rams fans with Sam Bradford, big time. And he just could not, replicate what he did in 2010. And he didn't look like the same quarterback. And ever since then, I feel like high ankle sprains, if they're not taken care of correctly, they can be a huge problem. And I guess that's, a big worry of mine for Jimmy Garoppolo moving forward. I think Jared Goff in this game, the stats speak for themselves. He needs to get a W against the 49ers because he hasn't been winning games against Garoppolo and the Niners, but he's definitely put up yards. He's definitely put up touchdowns. He hasn't turned the ball over a ton. So I do like Goff in this one. But moving on, which backfield do you think will have the better game? Eric, we'll start with you.
Well, I like the 49ers backfield. And, just a big reason for that is just because, we talked about Raheem Mostert and how, one touch and he can take it to the crib. And just the threat of that alone, over the backs that the Rams currently have, who do play well at times, but still I don't think that there are Raheem Mostert. I don't want to act like Raheem Mostert is some superstar right now, but I think he's on that pace if he can stay healthy. Somebody that really kind of the league really starts to take notice of. So just between him and Jerick McKinnon, he has played well. McKinnon, I think last game was the first game that McKinnon didn't score a touchdown. So he's been a pleasant surprise, and he's really been contributing. So I'll take those two guys.
Yeah, this is kind of a tricky one for me because looking at all of the backs between the Rams and the 49ers, I think Mostert is the best running back out of all of them. However, I think that between, the Rams having Henderson, Akers, and Brown, I really, all three have kind of, been hitting on all cylinders and playing well. I think that maybe as far as like a unit, the Rams right now have a better backfield, but I think that you're right. I think that Mostert is going to do well. I do think that he is going to do well against the Rams, and I think he is probably the best running back in this game. So I don't know if I can necessarily bet on either backfield. Just personally, I think it's pretty much a toss up. I think the Rams, in my opinion, have kind of the better unit, but I do think that Mostert's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Rams backfield a lot, but I mean, I think Raheem Mostert is the best running back in this game, and I think that's pretty crazy to say, since I mean, he really only had last year, but everything I've seen, just like Eric has said, I mean, he's one of the more explosive players with the football in his hand that's out there, and I just feel like on the drop of a dime, he could be gone. We saw that run against the Giants, in that game before he got hurt. I to me that's unmeasurable when you have a guy that can just house it. And if you take a bad angle, or if you miss a tackle, I mean, we've seen the Rams miss tackle. We saw the meme that happened after week 1 where you had Ezekiel Elliott in the way of 4 Rams defenders were around him, and he scored a touchdown on that. So I'm not about to say that Mostert's going to be bottled up, but I do think the Rams defense has played well. Alexis, I know you're very skeptical about the run defense. It does concern you. For me, I'm not as worried. I don't think they're great by any means, but I don't think they're as bad. Still, I think he's the best running back in this game. I think the Rams overall as a unit, I think this is honestly kind of even. I think the Rams will end up having a better game. I think the running back groups are even because when you look at Jerick McKinnon, you can't discount what he did in Minnesota. I know he's been out for a while, and I think people forgot he was very effective in Minnesota. There's a reason why he got that contract, and then Raheem Mostert's the best running back in this game, in my opinion. So the Rams have the most potential, but if you're looking at like the best backfield, I think it's might be the 49ers, but I think in this game, I think the Rams will have the better game. But moving on here, biggest breakout offensive player on each team.
Biggest breakout offensive player. I guess, because I don't want to just keep picking, a lot of Ram stuff, but I really like Robert Woods and his consistency. I also like Cooper Kupp. And at any point, 49ers did really good against Cooper Kupp last year, but there's only so long you can hold him down. So I'll pick one person from each team. If anybody's going to break out, have a big game from the Rams side, I would say Cooper Kupp. And from the 49ers side, I'd say probably Deebo Samuel. He hasn't had that big game yet. He's just coming back off of injury, working his way back into game shape. I think this is a game where Deebo Samuel starts to pick it back up and make the big plays that we're used to seeing him make.
Yeah, I think for the Rams, Tyler Higbee is going to have a good game. Last game, he didn't really do much, if anything, and I think that was because the Rams really utilized Gerald Everett a lot, and he had a really great game last game. So I kind of think that Tyler Higbee is going to kind of get back to where he was earlier this season. This game, I think that they're going to look at him a lot, especially because, kind of like you said, I think the 49ers probably will do a good job covering Kupp and Woods. So I think that Higbee has an opportunity to do a lot this game. As far as the 49ers go, I really like Brandon Nyuk, or if that's, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
But I actually drafted him in like 2 of my fantasy leagues this year. I just had a good feeling about him. I really liked what I saw out of him in college, and I think that this could be a really big game for him potentially. So he's someone that I'm going to be looking out for.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now with even just the 49ers pass catchers in general is, can the offensive line hold up? If the offensive line holds up and, Garoppolo gets in the rhythm, then I think we'll see more production out of the receivers, which we haven't really seen. I think the biggest issue is they're trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands so quick because he's gotten pressured so much. So if the offensive line can just hold up just a little bit, you'll start to see, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, those guys have some bigger games. And they definitely have the ability. They just haven't really had so much the opportunity, I guess.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Part of me wants to pick Kittle, part of me wants to pick Raheem Mostert, but I just don't want to be like too obvious because, obviously, those two guys I think will have a game. Kendrick Bourne, I'm going to say. I'm a lot higher on him than most people. I think Kendrick Bourne's a really good player. And I think, with the way the Rams secondary has played, this team is going to create a matchup issue. Someone is going to have a really good game if Garoppolo can get rid of the football. Bottom line, it may not be Deebo, it may not be Brandon Ayuk, it may not be Kittle, but when you have Ramsey, who could arguably end up covering George Kittle, they might throw him on Kittle. And then you have Troy Hill, who I think Troy Hill's really good on the outside, but I think he struggles in the slot, even though they have him in the slot. You have Darius Williams, who I think is playing well, but there's going to be one guy that's able to exploit this defense for, the 49ers. And I think Kendrick Bourne might be the lucky beneficiary there. I saw him, over the last few years, and I think he's a very underrated receiver, and he's got a good connection with Garoppolo. But as far as the Rams are concerned, I'm going to say Gerald Everett because I think, Sean McVay, I don't know if this is to get his trade value up or not, but Sean McVay all of a sudden wants to use Gerald Everett more. I know he's had these spouts before where he's, showed up and had, broke off these big, these huge games and then fell back down to earth. But I just feel like with the attention Tyler Higbee is getting this year because of what he did at the end of last year, and then, of course, his 4 touchdown or 3 touchdown game. I just feel like it's allowed Everett more and more to be the guy to penetrate the defense, and Sean McVay's finding creative ways to get him the football. We saw against the Giants, he took an end around into the end zone. And then against, the Washington football team, they really wanted to use him and they got him involved. He was the leading receiver. So I won't be surprised if Everett is, kind of that breakout offensive player for the Rams. But moving on, whose O-line is going to end up playing better when it's all said and done? I think this is the biggest one here because obviously, like you mentioned, Eric, Garoppolo can't do anything if he can't have protection.
Yeah, I don't have much faith in 49ers offensive line right now. Now, if you ask them, I think they're saying that they're playing well. I think Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey, they're saying that the 49ers offensive line is playing well. It looks like that's not exactly the case. And I'm just going to kind of go off of what I've seen. Very few run lanes, outside of just the explosive playability from the 49ers backs. Quarterbacks are getting hit a ton. So I'm going to go with the Rams on this one with, the better offensive line. Because the 49ers offensive line has played, I think, as poorly as a team can play. So it's like the Rams have to be better by default.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Rams offensive line is going to perform better. I think the Rams offensive line has actually done pretty well this season just in general, but I think you're right. I think the 49ers offensive line has really struggled. And I imagine, going up against Aaron Donald, they are going to continue to struggle in this game.
Gosh, man, he's like the boogeyman. I think Aaron Donald is the best player in the NFL. And, I say that anytime I get a chance, somebody, you guys didn't ask me about it, but anytime I get on the topic of who's the best player, and I know a lot of people want to go to quarterbacks and stuff, but I think Aaron Donald is the best player in the NFL, the most disruptive player. Just last week, 4 sacks in the game. I'm pretty sure there were other times where he was hurrying the quarterback and getting run stops. Dude, he's tremendous. I have the utmost respect for him.
Yeah, we're actually going to get into the defense in just a sec, but I totally agree with you. Alexis totally agrees with you. I actually had the question earlier this week on Twitter. I was like, when can we finally start calling this guy the best defensive player ever? Does he, if he wins, like say he gets the sack record, is that what's going to do it? I think that's the next question I want to have. I think he is the best player in the league, but As far as the offensive line, I look at the 49ers offensive line. I don't think they're playing that bad as far as the tackles are concerned that you mentioned, Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey. My concern, as a football fan when I'm watching them, is Laken Tomlinson isn't playing up to par. Ben Garland, I just feel like is a turnstile, and so is Daniel Brunskill. And I just feel like they haven't really been able to, like you said, carve out any running lanes, in between the guards, in between the tackles. Even the big Raheem Mostert touchdown was just basically he ran it, got it, bounced it out to the sideline, and then just housed it. So there hasn't been, a ton of running lanes, and I do think, that's a good point that you brought up. The Rams offensive line has been really good this year. I have no complaints about them. I think that, this is exactly why I didn't want them to go out and draft anybody. I didn't think they needed Ezra Cleveland. I thank God every day they didn't draft him over Van Jefferson. I felt like this offensive line just needed kind of, to gel a little bit. And while they're a little bit different from, the final quarter of last year, you saw them kind of, the continuity was getting there and they were starting to play better. So, we'll see. Obviously, Whitworth is older, so, they could fall off a little bit, but I definitely have the Rams having the better game. But moving on to the defensive side of the ball, who do we think is going to have the better game, the Rams defense or the Niners defense?
I'll say the Rams defense solely because I just and I have a lot of faith in the 49ers defense now. But I just think going against that offense and the weapons that they have, I think we can see the Rams have, just kind of more continuity, more explosive plays. And that's not even to say that the Rams will win, but I can see the Rams defense playing a little bit better just because of the offensive skill position players that the Rams have with Kupp and Woods. I just have so much respect for those two guys. So I'll say that I think I'll give a slight edge to the Rams. And I'm a big fan of Jaylen Ramsey as well, and he can kind of really disrupt games. Saw him pick off Garoppolo twice in the last meeting against the 49ers last year. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'm going to go with the Rams too, simply because of the offensive line issue that we talked about. I just think that the 49ers offensive line is going to have a really hard time with the Rams defensive front. So that's why I think I'm going to roll with the Rams defense. But I do think the 49ers defense is going to have a better game than a lot of Rams fans probably expect them to. I do like the 49ers defense. I think they're very underrated. So, I'm not saying that they're going to have a bad game, but I think between the two, I do think the Rams defense is going to perform better simply just because of the 49ers offensive line issues.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I hate to agree on everything, but I kind of look at both of these defenses. If Bosa was in the picture, you called him the heartbeat of your defense. I think that's a perfect point. He really is what Aaron Donald is to the Rams defense. I feel like Bosa will get the most out of everybody that's on that defensive line, regardless of who it is, whether it's Kentavious Street or Alex Barrett or Deion Jordan. It does not matter who's out there. I do think having Bosa there just helps everybody. And by not having him out there, I do think it is hurting this 49ers defense. He's the biggest loss that they could have had, except for, arguably Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, I definitely think that, the Rams defense coming in this game, they're coming off a game where they had 8 sacks. Aaron Donald had 4, including, a forced fumble. He's just on another level. And, I did mention before the Washington game, it did seem like, Aaron Donald, when you're expecting him to just go off against an easy matchup, those are the games he somehow doesn't have those big stats. But you saw it last week. Wes Martin, according to PFF, had a 0.2 grade pass blocking, which is the worst I think I've ever seen in PFF history. So, I think, this week going up against Daniel Brunskill and Ben Garland, I think he'll be able to win his matchups. I'm intrigued by, the Rams pass rush. You're going to have Terrell Lewis, playing in his second NFL game. Last week he got, 14, 15 snaps. This week we'll see what he does. So, the secondary is playing very well. I think the Rams will have a better game on the defensive side. What are your key matchups here? You are the cornerback guru, so I do want to know, what key matchups are you kind of zoning in on here, Eric?
I want to see what they're going to do with Jaylen Ramsey. Last year, at times they lined him up over George Kittle, and I'll see if they are going to do more of that. They didn't do it like for an entire game, but I want to see if they're going to do more, stuff like that. And outside of that, how are the 49ers going to, play the explosive receivers from the Rams? Now, the 49ers, typically, they just play their defense. They don't have guys shadow or anything like that. This year, they've gone more to a field and boundary corner. So you'll see the cornerbacks flip sides more than you've seen in the past. But, yeah, I want to see how the 49ers cornerbacks, just as a unit, are going to do against the Rams. And then, on the other side of the ball, where's Ramsey going to be? And that's what I'll be paying attention to all game.
Yeah, that's definitely my key matchup because, George Kittle is obviously a problem. And you kind of mentioned that it's probably going to be Ramsey on George Kittle. And that's, who I would hope would be on him because, in my opinion, one of the weaknesses of the Rams defense is the middle of their defense, kind of their linebacking core. And, I would hate to see us put one of our linebackers on Kittle or something like that. I think it's definitely going to be Jaylen Ramsey. So I think that that's going to be a really big matchup. I don't know how it's going to go. I think that Jaylen Ramsey has kind of historically done well against the 49ers offense. But to me, that's going to be the matchup that I'm watching all game because I think that could really make or break the game is that matchup right there.
That really is the matchup. If you're if you're really looking at this game, if Jaylen Ramsey can, shut down George Kittle, and obviously you have Darius Williams and Troy Hill and David Long Jr. If they can hold down, their end, then this is going to be a really hard bet for the 49ers. It's going to be really hard for them to win this football game. But the thing I worry about is the Rams linebackers in coverage. To me, I think Kaiser's actually been surprisingly a better coverage linebacker than I thought. He's been a lot better as a coverage linebacker than he has as somebody, this thumper that he was, everybody was billing him as. And Kenny Young has the athleticism, but I worry about Raheem Mostert getting in on those wheel routes and, getting, spread out wide. It's like, who is going to cover him? Because when you have that speed, you could argue Troy Hill is going to have to be on him. He's going to be a problem if they use him as a pass catching back out of the backfield. So I think that's a key matchup. That's a key, equalizer there. I just think at the end of the day, if the 49ers are down a score or two, they might be able to get it right back, with Raheem Mostert and that, breakaway speed. So, one missed tackle could change the game.
They don't really split him out like that. I don't think that's exactly how they want to use him. They'll do more of that with Jerick McKinnon. And he's nicknamed the Jet, but he's not flying anymore, really. Like he can run a little bit. He has a nice short burst, but that's about it. McKinnon will run. Not McKinnon. Mostert will run some routes from backfield. So if they can get him out in space and get him one-on-one with a linebacker and him run like an angle route or something like that, you might see that. But as far as just kind of splitting them out and kind of going empty, you'll see them do that with more of Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I think, if he gets, regardless, if he's in the passing game, that's what the 49ers needed to do. If they want to beat this Rams team, they're going to have to use Raheem Mostert in the passing game. And also bummer about Jerick McKinnon, because I remember him being a lot faster, and I think obviously the injuries have kind of shaved off some of his speed. But moving on, biggest breakout defensive player on each team.
With the 49ers, like I said, I think Hyder. And I mentioned them before, but I'll say breakout because I think he's kind of someone that's probably flying on the radar, and most other people don't know who he is at all. So this would be a good time for him, on Sunday Night Football to kind of, make his mark. And then, for the Rams, a cornerback opposite Jaylen Ramsey. I think it's going to have to be one of them that are going to make their mark on this and kind of step up and make a big play. And this might be the time to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. For the Rams, I think Troy Hill is going to have a big game, which, Jake is a huge Troy Hill fan. And I think that he's going to have a big game because, like you alluded to, I don't think Jaylen Ramsey is going to get targeted a lot. So I think that definitely opens the door for Troy Hill to have a big game. As far as the 49ers go, I think that Dre Greenlaw is going to have a big game. I really like Dre Greenlaw. I think that, he is a very talented player, and I definitely think that he has an opportunity going against the Rams to make some big plays. And, obviously I'm not going to cheer for him too hard because he's going against my team, but I would like to see him do well. And I think that he is. So for the 49ers, I think Greenlaw is going to have a breakout game.
Definitely.
Yeah, Greenlaw, I'm glad you mentioned him. He's definitely somebody that could, you mentioned from Arkansas. He's the guy I also liked in the draft. I don't know. I have a weird feeling that, if anybody's going to have a breakout game on the 49ers side, it's going to be Fred Warner. I just feel like Fred Warner, ever since I saw him at the Senior Bowl, I've just kind of fallen in love with his game. A very athletic linebacker. I think he can be a real problem. He can be a problem, somebody that, can go for that game-breaking interception, does go to punch the football out. I could see him being, huge in this one, having, 10 plus tackles, maybe an interception, an errant throw by Goff or a huge batted pass at the line of scrimmage or something like that, coming up and blitzing. I just think, Fred Warner is definitely somebody I'm always, keeping my mind, focused on. Javon Kinlaw, I could also see, really breaking out in this game, but I'm going to say Fred Warner, and then, for the Rams, I'm going to say Darius Williams. And I don't feel like at this point it's a breakout because I just feel like Darius Williams every game is playing extremely well. And, people only know his name because he got involved in that PI call, him and Gabriel Davis in the Bills game. So, I think Darius Williams, he's got the most sure hands of any cornerback I've seen the Rams have in quite some time, like even more than Jaylen Ramsey. I feel like anytime he gets his hands on the ball, it's a pick. So I could see him. I think he picked off Garoppolo last year. I could see him, having a huge game for the Rams, and whether it's interception or he just absolutely shuts down a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, I think the Rams will take that. But moving on, the last two things here, we're going to, any stat predictions anyone has, this is your time to drop them and tell everyone, I called this.
I'll say, you mentioned this guy earlier, but Kendrick Bourne, I predict he gets a touchdown. He's typically good for one of those. Matter of fact, he's only receiver to catch a passing touchdown for the 49ers this year. Brandon Ayuk has two rushing touchdowns, but they're both, two touchdowns, but they're both rushing. One was like a pass, but it was kind of like slightly back, and he went for 42 yards, but it counted as a rush. So Kendrick Bourne did get a passing touchdown last week, and I think he gets another one this week. So I'll go with Kendrick Bourne. That'll be my prediction.
So this prediction, it might be considered bold by some, but I don't think that anything is a bold prediction when it comes to Aaron Donald. But I think that Aaron Donald's going to have 2+ sacks in this game. I think he's going to have another week, back-to-back weeks of having a multiple sack game because of, the 49ers offensive line and because he's Aaron Donald. I don't think, they're going to be able to contain him, and they might be able to a little bit. And if they do, I think it's going to open doors for other people on that line. But I think that Aaron Donald is going to have a big game. And like I said, I know that like when you talk about Aaron Donald, it's not necessarily considered like a bold take because he can like do anything. But I do think that he's going to have a big game. So that's my prediction. I don't know how bold it is.
Yeah, See, coming in this game, I mean, I got to tell you, I'm really worried about not having Jordan Fuller and having Taylor Rapp play a lot. I'd like to see Terrell Burgess for the Rams. I think we're going to get Rapp, and I think Charlie Werner is going to be the beneficiary of that. I think they'll do a nice job of shutting down Kittle, and I think Werner's going to end up with 2 touchdowns in this game. That, like, honestly won't make a lot of sense to many, but, you know, we saw it with Lee Smith, you know, just like the miscommunication in coverage. I mean, we saw it last year against the 49ers in a game the Rams really started out strong and then overall blew it at the end. The big throw to Emmanuel Sanders. Taylor Rapp is a liability in coverage, and I believe that will continue if they use him as much as I'm hoping they don't use him, but I think they're going to use him a lot. And I think Charlie Werner ends up being the beneficiary with 2 touchdowns. Now, the Rams side, I'll say Gerald Everett goes over 100 yards. I think they'll keep the ball rolling with him. But moving on, final score predictions. We'll start with you, Eric.
I don't want to give a score prediction because I don't want to put any bad juju on my team. But I will say the Rams are favored by 3.5 points. I predict the 49ers cover that spread.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know it's kind of taking the easy way out, but I'll say that. I'll say the 49ers cover the 3.5. That's not, I don't know if they're going to win. I don't know, but, they cover the 3.5 point spread.
Yeah. Well, I respect that. I can definitely respect that. I think the Rams win 28-21. I don't think that this is going to be, I honestly do think that there's some probably Rams fans who think that this game is going to be a blowout. I can't speak for 49ers fans, but I think it is going to actually be a pretty close game. I think it's going to be an intense game. I mean, it's Sunday night football, on the big stage, and I think that it's going to be a fun game to watch. I do think in the end, I think the Rams have a little bit of a slighter edge. I think they've really been hot the past couple of weeks. They've really been playing well. I expect them to continue to do so. But I think it's going to be a close game. And if it's not 28-21, I do think it's going to be a 1 touchdown game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun game. I don't know how close it's going to be. I do think, the Niners can compete. I think here's the thing. The Niners, the reason they're not going to get blown out, like, say the Dolphins blew them out. I think they're healthier than they were last week. I know they don't have, they don't have Quan Alexander, they don't have Dante Johnson, but we've already talked about how they can kind of alleviate, the pressure there. Garoppolo is going to be healthier. He might still struggle, but he's not going to be as bad as he was last week. So I do have that. And also, I think this team is in some serious trouble, and I think they know that. They're 2-3 here. I think they need a win. The Rams, and people may not like them saying this, but the Rams can kind of put them out with a win here, in my opinion. If the 49ers go 2-4 to this point, I don't care that they have 7 playoff teams. This is a tough conference. This is a tough division. And, they don't have the tiebreaker at the moment against the Cardinals. They wouldn't have it against the Rams. And then, they obviously have to play Seattle. So, I mean, that would be a tough one. Plus, they've already played the easier teams on their schedule with the Jets and the Giants. So, it's not, going to get a lot better from here on out. So they do need this win. And I think, sometimes those desperate teams come out and they really play tough. I think they'll play tough. I think they'll look good. But at the end of the day, I have Rams 27-17. I just think the Rams have too many weapons, and I think they're the better team at this point. If you put in Nick Bosa, I do think he'd change this game. I don't think it would result in a 49er win, but I do think he would change this game and make it very interesting. So I can't stress enough how big of a loss that is. But hey, Eric, we really appreciate you coming on. Before we sign off here, tell our listeners, where they can find all your content and anything you'd like to shout out.
Yeah, so obviously follow me at Eric_Crocker. That's my main Twitter account. I also have the Crocker Report, so at Crocker Report, which myself and the team, we put out tons of draft content, football content. We even have an analytical aspect of it that measures high school kids and college athletes, their miles per hour, their athletic scores, that, how it transfers to the NFL. So that's something that's really cool that we have. And then I'm on Strike and Go podcast, but you guys probably don't care about that because you guys are Rams fans. So yeah, that'll be it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I was really excited to have you on the show this week, and I know Jake was too. We had tried to make it happen last season, and then it's scheduling and all that, but I was excited to get to talk to you. It's going to be a great game. I know we're rivals, but it's Sunday Night Football. It's going to be exciting. It's the big show, Rams 49ers. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Eric. For Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft, and that is Eric Crocker. We are signing off until next time. You guys take care and enjoy the game.